This is a continuation of our airflow and ducts lesson series. Now, these are adapted from a book called Airflow and Ductwork. It's by Leo A. Myers out of Lama Books. It's actually a pretty good book, so if you want to know more about this subject and if you want to have some good examples and some worksheets and stuff like that, I do urge you to go ahead and purchase his book, Airflow and Ducts. It's something that I have on my bookshelf and use regularly. And again, you can get that through lamabooks.com. So if you have not watched or listened to units 1 through 4, I do suggest you do that before you continue on this PowerPoint. Okay, so in lesson 5, what we're going to be talking about is airflow and duct and dynamic losses. What we want to show you in this lesson is what causes a dynamic loss and how to reduce dynamic losses. Now remember, we talked a little bit about dynamic loss in section 4. What we said was dynamic loss was caused by anything in ductwork that interrupts the straight line flow of air. Okay, there's one other thing we do need to talk about, and that's laminar airflow. Okay, laminar airflow is where air flows in layers. Okay, air temperatures remain the same and don't mix more often. So if you think about outside air, okay, hotter air rises. So in a room, okay, room air is probably a better example. In a room, you'll find that the hot air is up at the ceiling, and as you come down to the floor level, it becomes cooler. Okay, and the air is sort of sitting in layers, if you could put colors and differentiation to it. Okay, laminar flow, the air means that this air flows in layers, and air temperatures tend to remain in layers and don't mix. Okay, this seldom happens in ductwork, okay, but it is a poor method of transporting heat. You don't want laminar flow to happen. Now, turbulent flow is more often what we see in ductwork. Okay, turbulent flow means that the air tumbles and swirls, mix it up. Okay, almost all airflow in ductwork is turbulent. Turbulent mixes the air temperatures, keeps it more evenly spread. However, turbulent airflow increases friction and dynamic loss. Too much air turbulence can cause noise as well. Okay, so again, we have turbulent airflow. However, it is still moving in somewhat straight line pattern until you get to any place where you have to bend ductwork. Okay, any material that's moving tends to resist a change in direction. Okay, airflow in duct, just like anything else, doesn't want to change direction. So think about it as a car. Okay, you're moving along at 80 miles an hour in a car, and suddenly the road takes a turn to the right. Okay, a sharp bend to the right. Okay, you have one or two things that's going to happen. One, you're going to bounce off the guardrail if you don't have a smooth directional change, or you're going to change direction but have to slow down. Okay, the higher the speed, the greater the direct change, the greater resistance to the change in direction. Okay, so what this slide is showing you, it's a square throat elbow without any turning vanes. We're going to talk more about turning vanes, but they're basically little pieces of metal we put in a 90-degree elbow to help the air change direction. The air hits the heel of the elbow and becomes very turbulent, and you can see that at the top left-hand corner. The air will crowd at the heel, and there will be a low pressure area at the throat. Okay, so my air is coming in at a pretty high pressure. Because of the air hitting that heel of the elbow at the throat, we're going to have low area of low pressure. Okay, air is still going to go around here, but I'm going to have a pressure drop at the inside corner as it leaves that, okay, elbow. The fitting would create more turbulence and would result in an unacceptable amount of dynamic loss. And again, dynamic pressure loss is where we have anything that is disrupting the smooth flow of straight line air. Okay, and if you think about it, look at this picture, it does sort of make sense. If all the air is running straight ahead and hitting that heel, okay, it's going to cause a whole bunch of pressure, turbulence, and everything else up at that side. What's going to be down at the throat? An absence of pressure. Okay? The air acts much the same way in a radius throat, elbow, especially if the throat radius is too small. Okay? If it's too tight at the throat radius, I'm still going to have all the air hitting the heel, okay, bunching up there and not being smooth through there. So I'm restricting airflow even though the duct inlet and outlet are the same size. Okay. Okay, throat radius should equal the cheek width. Okay, so if you take a look at the 12-inch cheek, okay, and again, we're introducing a new term. We have throat, we have heel, and we have cheek. So the cheek is the sweeping side of the duct. Okay, if that is 12-inch wide, then the radius, remember radius is half of a circle from the center point of a circle out, I have to have 12 inches. Okay, or the air is just not going to flow smoothly across that. Now, I can also use what we call turning vanes. Okay, so again, we have the cheek, we have the throat, we have the heel, but inside of this, we've added something new. Okay, we've added turning vanes. Turning vanes make a number of small radius throat elbow. Okay, so what happens here with airflow is I can use a rectangular elbow or a small throat elbow, and I can install turning vanes, and those vanes will capture the airflow and allow it to continue down through the turn in an orderly fashion. In other words, you'll see that there's no turbulence here. If I go back a number of slides to here, you see there's a lot of turbulence. Okay, where that change is happening. Now let me go back to my slide with the turning vanes in it. Okay, you'll see that the airflow has actually really smoothed out. So I'm not going to have that dynamic pressure loss. Now, what is a turning vane? It's a really simple thing. It's a single wall turning vane. It's basically just a piece of sheet metal that has a 90-degree bend in it that is mounted inside the ductwork. Okay, that's a single wall turning vane. We can also have double wall turning vanes, okay, that are built, they have two walls in them, and they're a little bit more sturdy, okay, but they will do the same thing. Now, in some cases, you'll also see vanes with a trailing edge. You see that the incoming portion of the vane is a little bit shorter than the outcoming portion of the vane. You see, we've lengthened the end on it. It again allows us to stabilize the airflow after coming out of the turn. So we hit the turning vane, we have a 90-degree bend multiple times through the corner there. You'll see how they're mounted there, okay? All the air has to pass through, but it's basically allowing straight lines. We don't have the air mixing, we don't have the air hitting any dead corners, and we're basically throwing the air around the corner. That's one way to not have any like pressure reducing. Okay, it helps the dynamic loss. Okay, the trailing edge must point parallel to the duct side. You can ruin the whole idea of a turning vane by having it not pointing parallel. Okay, and it should never be more than 30 degrees, okay, off the side of the transition. Transition sides should not be over 30 degrees from the straight. Okay, and by the transition size, we're talking about the transition, okay, from the smaller duct to the larger duct. Should not be more than 30 degrees. That's about a 15-degree angle, okay, in 12 pitch. Okay, so again, we don't want to have any reductions or increases really more than a 15-degree angle over a length of time, over a length. Okay. The best offset is the S offset because it changes direction smoothly. Now, at the top picture of this, what you'll see is that there's an I-beam there. Okay, so I might be coming across a ceiling or a basement floor. I might have to come under a beam, have to drop the ductwork. I have two choices. I could put in a 90, a 90, and a 90 to bring it back up along the side of the floor, or I could do an S offset, which the S is that smooth curve that almost looks like an F. Okay. The S offset, okay, can be different lengths. The longer the curve, the better off we are. And we don't really want to do the bottom one as much as possible because it's not smooth. Anytime where we have corners with offsets or transitions, anytime there's a corner, it allows air patterns to change and we start getting more turbulence in the ductwork. A long offset can be made with 45-degree elbows. You'll see that there's a 45-degree elbow in two places here, okay? And again, there's no straight line, hard angles in here. It's all sweeping. The longer the sweeping changes we can make, the better, okay? So I could use a 45 and a 45 with a piece of straight duct between it, and I can slowly create a sweeping curve. The longer the air has to gently change direction, the lower the dynamic loss is going to be. So again, let's talk a little bit about what we covered here, okay? We talked about, okay, what is a dynamic loss? It's basically anything in a duct that will cause turbulence. Could be a corner, could be too sharp of an elbow, could be a small radius turn, okay, where the air is bouncing off the outside and we have pressure differences on the inside, okay. Long sweeping curves for changing direction, no sharp angles is the best thing we can do for airflow.